All right, this week we are joined by the one and only Mike Ross, who is here with us. Hey, Mike, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you guys for having me. Glad we could all be here together at the same time.
You are actually in Singapore, right? You're living there. That is your home now, right?
Yeah, it's I'm still I can't say it's like permanent. It's definitely not permanent because I'm still split back and forth between going back to US and Singapore, but basically I you can kind of say I have established a home base out here and I've been back and forth since 2022.
Awesome. I guess for anybody that might not know who you are, there are people in our audience that are just getting to fighting games, and could you take a second to maybe introduce yourself, just generally?
Yeah, so I've been playing, well, I guess you kind of go back even further. Yeah, I got into fighting games like most people at a really young age. Actually, fighting games was my least favorite genre of gaming. And I never, I come from the arcades, right? And I guess when you go to an arcade, when you spend your quarter, your money, your hard earned, borrowed from parents' money at a very young age or something, however you get it, you want that quarter to last the longest. So I always thought fighting games was the biggest scam. Like, come on, you play somebody, you get your ass beat, you got to go back to the change machine the quickest. But yeah, I'll just never forget in seventh grade when my friend and I went to the arcade and there was a long ass line for Soul Calibur. And I asked my friend Zing, I was like, man,
Oh,
how come people why do so many people are playing this game? Like why aren't they playing Metal Slug over here? And they said because, you play a fighting game, that's how you know who's the best. And it didn't occur at the time, like that's the best in the whole room, so
Yeah,
no.
yeah. That
Yeah. It didn't really click for me
yeah.
until I think X-Men vs. Street Fighter came out. Um, and that's when I played it. And obviously,
nice.
it helps that these are familiar characters. So I know Street Fighter characters, I know X-Men characters, and it was an addiction ever since. Um, yeah, so I've been playing fighting games since then, but I didn't take it really hardcore serious till Marvel vs. Capcom 2 came out. That's when I learned that there was a whole world, that it was bigger than
Ooh.
the current arcade room that you're in, but there's people all over, at the time, US playing it. You know, Overseas, nah, that can't be possible. But yeah, so
Yeah, yeah. At the time, it was kind of your local arcade, right? You were always
Mm.
looking for who the best was, and there'd always be that one person. It's like, oh, it's that guy over there. That guy is the best in this arcade. And so, I guess what happened was people had people were proud of their best
yeah,
in their arcade, and those arcades fought each other and met up. And within the U.S., it became this big thing, and tournaments formed. And of course, yeah, the foreign players weren't even didn't even exist at the time, right? Because
Mm.
yeah,
there's language barrier, and even at the time, I think they were was it like news groups and stuff where people were meeting each
Right.
other? I
I
remember
mean, there
like
was
a
not even there's no internet, so like it's so difficult to know if there is a world out there. So
yeah, I think
yeah,
like that Seth Killian was talking about being on news groups and like talking shit to people, and it's like, whoa, that's imagine that.
next
Like it's
level
like
stuff.
that's like some
Yeah.
old school internet where like I was attacking people on the internet before you even knew what social
I
media
mean, like,
was.
how is that possible? Like, do you like store all your trash talk in one, and then like a big spirit bomb of trash talk when you meet offline or something? That's
Yeah.
so crazy stuff, right?
Yeah, so that's cool. I mean, that's a typical FGC story.
yeah,
Going to arcades, and then usually in my case it was that my mom would give me some quarters, a couple dollars to play in the arcades while she was shopping at the mall, and
yeah,
basically I realized that if you won, you can play more. Like that
yeah.
was the game where and so like you were playing with other people, so like if you could beat them, then you can just make your $2 last more. And then people who
Mm.
had who valued that change more, they kind of played harder. Right? They were
Yes,
like, we have
yes,
to make this shit last,
that's
because
right.
once it's gone, your entertainment's over.
That's right. There was a clear moment, and I think that's when, just to speak on what you just said, where I said I need to get better, and I was on my way to an arcade at the time. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 was out. I went to Super Arcade, and I came. with 1 quarter. That's what I had on me. And I said, I need this game to last as long as possible. And I think it lasted me an hour and a half. I had like a 50 something win
What?
streak or something. And I said, and, and it's
Damn.
like, it puts it into perspective. You got to stay hungry to play hungry. And that was it. So
Yeah.
you know, if you come in with 1,000 quarters, you don't care if you lose. It means nothing. You know, but you got one. You got to make that work.
Yeah, that's that's what kind of something unique, I think, in fighting games in its history, right? It's kind of it's the most accessible competitive game or esport or whatever you want to call it in this era, because even if you played like StarCraft or something, you would still need a PC, I guess, and that costs a lot of money. And back in those days, like having a PC was like a big
luxury.
deal. Yeah. I mean, I remember when I got my first PC. It was for school to write papers and stuff like that. And of course, I immediately found out about like Duke Nukem 3D and like all these games you could play on the computer. And then like my parents were like, what have we done? We thought this would be for school, but like we should have gotten them a Mac that has no games, but they got me the PC. So that was kind of how
my
I guess a lot
world
of games
changed when I installed my first CD-ROM drive. I can like insert new media into this. I'm like, damn.
Yeah, but remember, loading times are so bad with like CDs.
worth the
Loading
wait.
times are bad. Oh, you must have had a 2x drive. You weren't on 4x like me.
Oh, the higher the number, the better.
No,
right?
I remember that went up to like 32x.
Yeah.
It just like
when you have
became this,
32x,
like,
your friends will ask you to, could you like burn this CD for me? It's like, it's more productive and faster. It's like,
you remember CD burning? Like people would burn CDs. Like people were like, we're never gonna buy any music ever again.
That was like a currency in your school classroom. It's like, I got this 700 megabyte. A blank CD-ROM. Guess what I can put in the CD-ROM?
Yeah, that was pretty disruptive. Okay, we're kind of old manning out right now.
We're old manning it up right now.
56K modems. Remember those? Like,
new technology.
All right.
That was an awesome day.
Well, we need to get back to Mike. Of course, he's our guest here. All right. So I guess so, Mike. I mean, you've been in the content game for forever, right? In FGC, and of course, I heard people saying that. I think I might have heard it from you that Mike, you had a background in filmmaking or broadcast or something like that. Do you have anything to say about that?
I don't know. I don't want to say it's typical. It was definitely not typical. I know so many people who at age of 13, they know what they're going to do the rest of their life. I was in junior college and I was ready to transfer to a 4-year back in the US, and I went to the counselor. I said, hey, I need to get out of here. I need to get out of Mount Sac. I need to get to a Cal State school. And so I specifically said, but I don't want to go to this school called Cal Poly Pomona. That's where EVA was held in 2003 and 2004. And the reason why I didn't want to go there is, one, it was closest to my house. It was like a 15-minute drive, but it also had a lot of Marvel 2 players that I knew. So not that that's a problem, but it's the fact that I feared that I would spend more time in the arcade than going to class.
Smart, right?
And it's also across this, it's also a 5-minute drive from Super Arcade. So I said, what I need to do is I need to go to a school further away. So I went to I went to a school where I knew one person. I went to Cal State Los Angeles, where Combo Fiend was going. And I kid you not, they had an arcade there called the Pit. And that's where they played Marvel 2. They had Marvel 2 there. It's called the Pit. It was literally, you had to walk down in a basement. And I can't make this up. You got to imagine my first day, once I got the transfer. I had to pick a major. I said, I'll major in TV and film. I like TV and film. Let me major in it. I've messed with cameras. I'm really interested in it. So let me actually learn this. And maybe, was I interning yet? No, I wasn't interning. I did that later. But yeah, so I went there, let Combo Fiend know, I'm coming, man. I'm coming through Cal State LA. Let's go. And the day I get there, I hear the beep, beep, beep. There's literally a wrecking ball bulldozing the arcade.
Whoa. What? Yeah, I wouldn't say that's a perfect timing, but whoa.
What?
Okay.
All the students are standing outside because nobody sees. This is not something you commonly see. We see the actual wrecking ball, and it's demolishing the building where the arcade was. And they say, "Yeah, we're getting rid of it."
Wow. Do you see that as a sign, or was that kind of like I don't know? Like, how did you feel about that? And I mean, you might have. It might go both ways, right?
Yeah, I mean, but it was okay because this is around 2005. So at this point, I'm like, I don't need Marvel. Like, I'm just gonna focus on school.
Yeah.
And here's what's crazy too is, mind you, when I was at junior college, I was there for an embarrassing length of time because they're so easy. I don't feel like going today. I'm gonna go across the Super Arcade and play some Marvel.
Damn.
My grades were like really, really shitty. And then once I transferred and they demolished the arcade, I had I was getting great grades, A's, B's, made the dean's list. Like, I was kicking ass. I was like, oh, it's so easy when you have no distractions. And then yeah, so damn, there's so many tangents I could go with this.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Yeah. But literally, it sounds like you're explaining a Simpsons episode. Like, that never happens to anyone. You go to
the wrecking ball,
the wrecking ball comes out. I'm like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess so you do have kind of a a filmmaking background, and it's interesting because you say that Marvel was a distraction, and in some ways it was a blessing that the arcade got demolished because your grades got better and everything. But then at the same time, the content that you're making now is dependent upon the fact that you grew up in the arcades and you played these games, right?
Yeah.
So it's something where it's like, yeah, it was a distraction, but it was also integral to kind of the identity you've reached today, right?
Absolutely. And yeah, like with utilizing that background, you can go back to when I was there. And, I'm in these classes and I'm with a lot of people who, every day you have to do these, or not every day, but you do these icebreakers where everybody introduces themselves, says what their goals are. And I was just blown away how everybody knew what they were going to do in life. Some people want to be directors, some people want to be actors, some people want to do audio engineering, whatever it is. Everybody kind of had this thing. I still was clueless. I'll just sit in there absorbing information. And, when everybody presented projects, presented films and stuff they worked on, I'm not gonna lie, some of this shit's crazy. Like, I don't know, some people are doing some pretty big things today that I went to school with. But I just remember, I was still playing the game. So I remember going to a tournament once and just looking around the room, and I was like, fuck, I should capture some of this. More people need to know about this, because the only people that know about this are in this room or in the forums. But even still, when I'm going on SRK, everything is text.
Yeah.
All we're doing is reading text. All we're seeing is tournament matches. Nobody knows these people. Nobody's having conversations with these people. And at the time, I've been watching, I'm like, even in tournament footage, nobody's done a 2-camera setup. Yep. All I'm seeing is tournament footage. We don't know what these players look like unless somebody just, kind of moves it around. So I went to Cal Poly. I did the Dark Prince versus Clockwork match, and I brought 2 cameras in. I did an interview. All of this shit, I think, was the first time anybody's seen this. And I wanted to record the match. And the whole money match, I never saw a game because I operated the manual camera on player reactions. So I'm just filming away from the set, but just looking at everybody's reactions the whole time and blending that. So I wanted to take some of the shit and techniques I learned in school and apply it here. It's almost like practice for me. And once I released that, that's when I said, oh shit, I think I know what value I can bring to the world, essentially. And that world being fighting games, which is something I knew, so that's kind of how the two worlds blended.
I think it's extremely important to find the thing that you're going to film or write about or make the content about, right? We throw around the word content, just freely without thinking about the fact that the word content means that there's stuff. And I think there's a lot of videos and blogs that don't have any content. There's writing. There's like video. You can make an hour-long video with no content in it, right?
Interesting.
So,
Interesting.
So this is my view on content. Is I feel that if you have something that you love, you'll be able to write about it or film about it or do whatever. This is kind of where passion meets the the creative skills. Right? You could be like the best cinematographer, or you can be, like Michael Bay can make the craziest shit, right? It happen. But I mean, I wouldn't want him to make an FGC thing. Like, I wouldn't want him to be directing every part of
explosions every 20 seconds.
Yeah, yeah. These are like drama blow-ups, not like actually like blowing things up. So I don't know if Michael Bay filmed the the Visconti low tier god thing. Maybe it would have been like
that would have been a high quality production
with the background out of focus.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to add to what Mike said. Like, I can relate because I was like that too. I was that guy in the arcade in Australia, Melbourne, Australia, doing, seeing these things for the first time. And it's like, oh, it's so cool. I want to be part of it. But that's the first step. Yeah. And then later on, I realized, like everything online is like trash talking in text and just like numbers and text saying who won, who lost, what's good, what's bad. Where are the photos and where are the people? Are they even real people? And then I'm like, I took my digital camera. Remember the digital cameras? Took my digital camera and and a $2 shop tripod, and taking footage of the arcade and the people, and those relic footage is still in my YouTube channel, and it to me didn't mean anything, but I thought stuff like this need to be recorded, like kept in history. Otherwise it's just gonna be stories which I know that eventually it's gonna vanish. Right?
It has to be documented, which is why they're called documentaries, right? It's an extremely important thing to do, and I think the quality of the documenting does matter as well. Like you said, Mike, there was the SRK forums, and I remember back then, like I remember the forum days. I was on a lot of forums, and I was on gaming forums, and there were if you were a lurker, you really were a lurker. Like it was just like nobody, like people would volunteer to post an image of themselves in the post, right? There wasn't like the avatar feature or anything. You would have to like just upload this picture and have a link available to it for anyone to know what you look like. And if you were one of those people, you're like, oh, you revealed what you look like. That was like, there are certain people that revealed what they look like, and that wasn't very common. Nowadays, like, with Facebook and everything, it's everyone's putting their image all over the internet, and it's just like a part of being on the internet now. But those are interesting times. But I guess the thing that I want to get into was I guess there was kind of a journey that you had until you got into the cross-counter era, if I can call it an era, right? So that when you were in college, that was kind of the dark ages of the FGC. I know that's a little bit Street Fighter centric or Capcom centric. I know Tekken guys like the dark ages.
No, it's facts. It's actual fact.
Yeah,
it's facts.
Yeah, there was. I remember because I was not like FGC at the time, but I was. I remember going to arcades, and there was Street Fighter 3, and I remember it was kind of a flop compared to Street Fighter 2 in almost every single way. But there were people still playing it, and they loved it. And but definitely like there's a romantic notion with Third Strike, but like Street Fighter 3 was not the game that was just like that made arcades like huge. It was Street Fighter 2, and with 3. It was kind of when the arcades were waning. I guess you can kind of attribute that to the arcades like kind of disappearing, and then consoles coming out with really crappy ports that everyone had to like deal with and all that stuff. So during the dark ages of the FGC, I mean, this is kind of interesting. You were, I guess both you and Kevin were active FGC-wise, not just playing video games, but active in FGC during the dark ages. I don't know, can you kind of describe that period and kind of what you were doing with content and leading up to the Street Fighter 4 era, which I think is largely defined by cross-counter, right?
Damn, crazy. Yeah, so during the dark ages, I would say the dark ages was around 2006 to up until Street Fighter 4 came out. And I mean, granted, there was a time when I was focusing a lot on school, trying to finish that up. But I would still play Marvel every now and then. And again, like, I guess, yeah, during that time, it was just mainly finishing school. If you're more curious about, I guess, once Street Fighter 4 came out, we could say this: 2008 in Las Vegas. That's when they previewed Street Fighter 4,
I remember that. Yeah.
and they had, I think Kendevu won it or something, like the exhibition thing or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
But I was just watching it, and I remember watching it. I think I played one round, just one game, and I was just like, it's Street Fighter. Okay. Like, nothing special, but it's just one game, and there's such a long line to play. You can't really sit down with it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I think the game started to get released in arcades when I played it, and there was so many people playing it. And I was, at this point in my life, I went through what I considered my darkest time, losing a parent. That's, it's rough. So, and I'm just like, damn, there's all these people here, and just the energy in this room is keeping me, I'm not dwelling on this other stuff. I have something to focus on. I found my distraction. And when I say, like, that was just my fuel to get through everything, there was a place, Video 94, that was by my house, and they never close. So I remember I was there, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, playing the game, and there was other people there playing. So I looked around, and that let me know, I can connect with people. If there's people here on this day, this is the most, this means, I didn't say anything. I try not to give any indication, but just staring at people, you just kind of know, hey, you want to play? All right, yeah, let's play. Nobody talked about anything. We didn't say what day it was.
I remember that.
We're just there playing. So that's what let me know how powerful this game could be. And I guess, from there, I just remember I just wanted to be so damn good. I didn't want to be the best. I wanted to be the best I've ever been in a fighting game. That's what I said, because I played Marvel 2. I was good. I was never elite. I wasn't,
I can vouch that you were good at Marvel 2.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I might have gotten 25th at Evo or something, but let's be real, maybe I got lucky. But I wanted to be like, undeniably good at Street Fighter when it came out. So but I loved the process of getting better. I loved the process of losing. Losing to me was fun in that game because there was a way around it. It wasn't like, how did I lose? Oh, he just did this. No, there was, like you could fix everything. At least in the, in the beginning before 2012 Vortex, Yin and Yang were entered, or AE, sorry, before they entered the scene,
The darker ages.
Pre-patch, AE, yeah.
And I just remember, so it's just kind of crazy, just how I still have this video background. I'm still, at the time, I'm doing a lot of video jobs, Sure. People would ask me to do music videos for people or film weddings. I'm a videographer by day, essentially. And one thing I noticed was once I started getting good in Street Fighter and there were tournaments around and I started getting top 3 at all these tournaments, I was making more from that, even though there was no money in it back then. I was making more from just getting a couple $100 here and there, than, say doing some of these videos. And then I needed to find somebody as crazy as I am who saw it the same way, that, wait, there's a future in just focusing 100,000% on this. And of course that was Gutex, and he's from the audio background. He was recording metal bands. He was doing his podcast. He had the website, with essentially just text, but it was content, right? With Gutex.com. So we would essentially politic after long sessions at the arcade on just what was needed, what can be done, what can be changed. We saw this shit so different. And still, I still think, a lot of stuff we came up with, people still haven't caught up to it yet. And, and it would still, we had the blueprint on everything on how to get, let's say, million viewership on all tournaments, but they're still not doing it for some reason. But yeah, that's how we clicked. And, we did one podcast together. I went on his Gutex podcast, and I think he said something like people wanted to see more of me or something, if I would be down to do other shit. I'm like, yeah, let's just do it. And then, we stuck and we ran through a lot of stuff, did every crazy idea we ever had, and it seemed like there was a lot of other lunatics out in the world that liked what we did, so it clicked.
I was one of them.
Yeah, no, I was more than just one of them. I was so I mean, this is I wanted to ask you about this because one of the reasons I started Core Gaming was because of Cross Counter, right? That was my favorite thing to watch on
Same.
YouTube. Like that was and there's nothing like it, right? The idea of just like two homies on a couch playing games online. And in a big sense, like you guys and a lot of the FGC content that you see, it kind of pioneered a lot of the way gaming content has formed, right? There's a lot of influence from the FGC, I feel, because it's one of the areas that's it is an old competitive game that has had the stream background. There's you have people like Spooky who have pioneered technologies, found ways to stream things and
stuff.
and that became kind of a thing. And so I guess the cross counter concept was very it was very futurist. Like you guys were probably talking about, like this is the future, and it was like it was. You guys nailed it. And so I guess during the cross counter era, I noticed. I remember you guys tried a bunch of different things with locations and studios, and then there's the couch thing, and then how did you guys get inspired to kind of land on that? Because I realized that with content, if you make it too studio-like, if you have like too many like roaming cameras and like dolly shots and like way too many effects, it kind of takes away the intimacy a bit. But I found like you guys found the right balance between production quality, production values, and the intimacy. Was there any thought process behind that when you guys were developing it?
Yeah, there actually is. So to what you said too, is it pains me because I feel like nobody has done the professional production correctly yet. Like when you said, like if there's too many cameras, you're right. It can take away on certain levels, but it's because nobody knows how to do it. There's a way to do it where it can be more engaging than we have seen thus far. But with the whole couch and everything, just be real. A lot of things start out because you work with what you got.
Of course.
You look around. I think Kevin, did you ever go to the original Cross Counter studio?
Original one? No, sadly. I knew of it.
Okay, no, you never went.
I never went.
Okay, all right, never mind.
I went to the next one.
I didn't know
I
if you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, you deal with what you got, and all credit to the powerhouse member of our team, which is Steve. Steve was the guy who did all of our shooting and editing in the beginning. Just a quick funny story with Steve is I met him back in like 2003, 2004, because I was taking an acting class and one of the guys in my class said, "Hey, I got a buddy who wants to film a short." And he asked me, "Do you mind like playing a part in it?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Why not? We're all doing this." And this was this guy, Steve. And, just asking, we're all young. So, what do you do? And I'm just like, I play video games. I play fighting games. And he's like, "Oh, yeah, I love Street Fighter. That's a fun game." But anyways, we shoot our shit. One day back in like 2004, I remember he went to Super Arcade with me and saw me playing Marvel 2. And he's like, "Oh shit. Like, oh, this is crazy. Like there's people lining up. There's people that know you." He's like, "Dude, can I do a documentary on this?" And I said, "Hell no." Like, hell no. Like this is just a game. Like anyways. So fast forward some years.
Yeah.
And me and Ryan are about to do our first Bar Fights event. I shot the trailer for that on my camera back then. Didn't know what the fuck I was doing, but the day of the event, Ryan Gutex is like, "Hey Mike, I got a buddy from college who I'm calling to just shoot videos. His name is Steve." And I was like,
what a coincidence.
I was like, "There's no fucking way." And, of course I didn't draw the connection then just because he said the first name. But I was like, "There's no fucking way." But then he was like, he says he knows you. He says you guys did videos together. I said, "That's Steve?" I said, "That's not like what?" mind you, now it's been 6 years, 5 years or whatever since, so
Small world.
Steve comes back into the mix, and he shot all of this stuff during bar fights. And I just love, me and Steve already had a good friendship at this point, but I just love the fact, this is great, is Ryan would go on and on about, and just laughing, doing his Gutex laugh. Steve, you remember back in college, in class, when you said that wild shit? Like going crazy. And then I remember Steve pulled me aside and he said, Mike, me and Ryan never had a class together.
Holy what? Okay.
He says, we went to school together, but that story, we never had that class together. I don't know what he's talking about. So I guess this is long hair Ryan,
Right.
Yeah.
when he just showed up to class in whatever mood he wanted. But no, so the point of that was Steve was the one where when we did all the videos, he said he never wanted to use a tripod because he wanted to shoot it in a lens where he was just a homie sitting there with you. So it's like everybody watching was like they were in the room with us, moving around, getting shaky. So if Steve is laughing, the camera's shaking too because he can't hold it. So it's kind of like you're watching and laughing along with it.
Oh yeah, I
dynamic
completely noticed that when I was watching Cross Counter. As a camera person myself, I was like, there's like a handheld angle. And I always thought like, oh man, it must be exhausting like holding the camera for that long. But it was like it was a handheld shot, but it really added to the I guess the intimacy or the realness or whatever you want to call it. It's that was one thing that I really noticed about Cross Counter. And so I guess as time passed, of course there was a new Street Fighter game, and of course this was kind of a moment on Cross Counter. There was a famous video. Right, where you kind of talked about your kind of concerns about FGC direction, commercialization. Maybe and I mean I don't know if I'm conjuring like demons from within that you didn't want, but
I defeated them all.
But I mean there was that kind of era, and I remember watching that, and I think there was a lot of things that you said that were that resonated with a lot of people as well. So it was kind of a I mean, I don't know. That was a very, as a person who watched Cross Counter religiously, it was kind of like a big moment. And I don't know how much you want to share about that, or if there's anything there beyond what we saw.
Yeah, I guess I guess I can speak about it. And I didn't want to say too much at the time because I didn't want my best to not to affect anybody that was still working there and cost them jobs. That's one thing I didn't want to do. Yeah. But some of the things, like a lot of the companies, I was working at Twitch at the time, or not when I did that. I think I left already. But it's like I'm hearing, and this is not internally necessarily at Twitch, but other companies that want to do business with stuff. And you guys, I'm sure you guys get it. At some point, you're not viewed. Nobody cares about the individual. You're just viewed as a commodity. Right? What's your numbers? Okay.
Yeah, they call you an influencer instead of you're a person. You're not a person anymore. You're an influencer. Yeah.
That term didn't exist before.
Influencer is not even a real word. Yeah.
Yeah, but I remember like specifically there was an event that I did. They wanted to put a budget together to do an event where we invited Street Fighter players out to play for it's essentially a sponsored event, and I was asked. After a while going back, because my whole goal, it's such a dude, getting into the story of even how I got involved in there is kind of crazy. But I was always a bit fucked up in the head. I'm not going to lie. Like I didn't care about myself as much, to an extent, at the time. So there was a point where they wanted to do an event, and I put some players down. We were going to fly them out, and I was asked, Mike, can we just get the players to do it, and we just give them a flight and hotel? And I remember saying, if we don't pay them, then I'm not being part of this anymore, because players need it, because I know what the sacrifice is, and it fucking infuriates me today that players are accepting so many things where there's so many sponsors involved and they're not getting paid a fucking penny.
Yeah, still to this day.
You know what I'm saying? Like they're doing it, and it's because of the simple fear of, well, if I say no, they'll replace me with,
What makes me more upset is it's actually happening to like our friends now, because even back then, it's like people that we know, right? It's not just some popular guy. It's like my friend who's good at the game got the opportunity, but then I know better that he's worth more than that for sure. But these guys are just like paying peanuts, It's so upsetting.
You got to look at it too, as like who's paying. It's I understand, like, for example, let's say let's say the two of you decided to sponsor a player. It would be crazy if somebody comes to you guys and say, well, I want 10,000 a month, or something like that. Unless you guys have like, unless at the start of your videos you say, hey, this video is presented by Facebook, by Coca-Cola, like all kind of crazy shit. And some of these companies have these major sponsors and they're saying, well, I'm sorry, we just don't have any money for you. But we need you to say thank you, Coca-Cola, for like, wait, what the fuck? Why are you doing this? But just wanted to say that's kind of how that all spawned. That's just one example. I was just worried that I would see people stop doing this for the love of it, and they would get controlled by things that they're not even aware is happening.
Yeah, I think there's of course you see this community that's getting more and more popular, bigger and bigger. Of course, the numbers show that, right? And then you're going to have people that come in the industry that that don't really care about any of this stuff, and they just kind of look at people as like, oh, that guy is this or something I heard, and this guy is this, and so it's
understandable.
There's no it's when you have too many people in the industry like that, it's that come in with absolutely zero knowledge and no interest. I think that's definitely can cause a lot of problems. Like I said with the Michael Bay thing, like I would never want that guy to do anything on FGC stuff. Go ahead and do Transformers or blow up stuff. But like, even the most respected directors, it can take your pick, right? But it's it definitely requires that, and I think the people who do understand are people who do have some interest, and I've met people in the industry who maybe they're not exactly like the most knowledgeable about fighting games and FGC lingo and not great at the games, but I've also seen people who are very who take a big effort to learn about it and be into it as well. And that does make a difference too, because I know not at this stage, not everyone can be like, master rank in, or I guess master doesn't matter anymore, master 1800 MR in Street Fighter 6 or whatever. That's doing like the accounts or doing, setting up the tables at an event or something, right? It's interesting how this is playing out, and we're kind of in like the late stage of that. And so it's interesting because once again, like you guys, cross counters, as much as it was kind of like you guys are futurists in a lot of ways. And what's funny is the whole thing with like what was it, like Future Gutex, like that whole
that was the
skit,
best.
like that was,
oh my god,
that was like that kind of symbolizes like what you guys have been kind of talking about and working on the content, because you guys were kind of paving the way. I mean, I remember when you guys were using hitboxes before anyone else, and now I have a hitbox and I'm using that, and leverless being the future and stuff like that. So it's
Shout
very
out
interesting.
to Oliver, by the way.
Oh yeah. Oh, we met him at wasn't he at EVO Japan?
Yeah, he was there
I
too,
briefly saw him. I wish I could have talked to him a little bit more, but
he was there.
But I guess so during this time, let me know if if this next topic is too many demons. I know you played Bathhouse, recently. I love that game, by the way.
Bathhouse is the best.
But let me know if it's like
conquered all my demons.
But I guess there's so Capcom Pro Talk, right? That was I remember Capcom Pro Talk being like, that was like some of the best shit like ever. There's I remember when Flo and K-Brad and you on stage just riffing. And it was like Street Fighter 4 and 5 as well. And I mean, it was commercially like a hit too. It was like people were there were numbers. You guys were getting like huge numbers. And the show itself was actually like funny. It was super FGC, 100% FGC humor. It was like it was as real as you can get, but then it was high production values. This shit was like this is like the best kind of gaming content. One of the best pieces of gaming content I've seen. And then of course I guess we know what happened later. It it disappeared, right? And so I don't know how much you can reveal about that and what happened, and but that was kind of a shock to a lot of people. It's like, how can something this well done be like not,
I was one
like
of the
just
most
gone,
shocked
right?
person of the entire audience, I guess. I had the honor to meet Mike, K-Rad, and Flo when they were doing an episode. I was in the Twitch offices
That's right.
once, and then
Yeah, you
I
were
was
just
like,
posted up. That's right.
I was like the biggest fanboy. I'm like, holy crap, I'm here. I'm like watching this, and I had a chat with I believe it was Adam as well, right? Yeah, and then I saw the entire behind the scenes. It was awesome, and it was just sad to see one day just poof disappeared. So if there's anything you could share, like yeah.
I mean, well, yeah. Sorry, I guess it's. I mean, where do I start? I don't know where to like. It's I guess because it's not something I ever really talk about.
Sure.
But I don't know where to start. I guess you could say the concept of it came from is, I was in talks with Matt Dahlgren from Capcom. I love Matt Dahlgren. He's a goat.
Yeah, I love this facial expression when Daigo didn't appear on the stage once. That was one of the moments.
Oh yeah.
And I was just thinking like, I'm about to start up at Twitch, and I'm thinking, what value can I bring to the Capcom Pro Tour? And then I thought, how about I do Capcom Pro Talk, which is a show that will simply gather everybody so they know what the fuck is going on in the Pro Tour, And we'll throw in my little bullshit humor or whatever it is, where how can I have people engage, since I'm supposed to be a pro, which we all know. I mean, in Street Fighter 4, let's be real. I'm fucking nice. Okay,
Yes.
In Street Fighter 4.
I heard the stories. I saw the clips.
Let's just be real. Yeah. So, yes, but so I don't know if you remember the very first episode, I was doing it literally in my bedroom. My camera, all my equipment. I remember I asked Alex Valle because he was down the street. I was like, "Yo, Alex, you want to help me out? You want to pull up and do this? Kind of do this shit with me?" He's like, "Yeah, sure, yeah, why not?" So I had Alex Valle with me a few times, like 2 or 3 times in the beginning as well. And this was before I moved to San Francisco. So in the beginning, we were hitting like 1,500, maybe 2,000 viewers live, which is, in my opinion, I'm like, damn, we're reaching the whole world. That's everybody, kind of going crazy with it. And then, once I moved up there, they had a studio at Twitch's office that essentially was not being used, and it was blowing my mind. I'm like, can we use it? Can I use this? And they're like, yeah, sure, fuck it, go ahead. We're not, like, why would you want to use that? Sure, go ahead.
Yeah.
So DJ Wheat was doing the first like 2 videos, and then DJ Wheat was like, "Fuck this! I got more important things to do." He always believed. I'm not talking shit, but he's like, "Man, here, Adam, you take over this shit." DJ Wheat's got like, "I got $1 billion meetings to handle," so I respect that.
Hustle, yeah.
And so we're just doing it there on our own time, and it was all Street Fighter 4, mind you. Street Fighter 5 wasn't even essentially talked about when we started this. So all of this was with Street Fighter 4 in mind, knowing all of these players, having traveled already, around and met players literally Australia, right, all over the place, right? I felt like I knew a way where I can kind of create narratives and storylines to make everybody a part of this be essentially a superstar on their own. And that was the point of all of this. And just to let people know who's at the top, who's winning what, who's doing this, who's doing that. Everything was cool, and eventually it started to get better and better and bigger, I guess. And then that's, I just, if I had somebody in my corner to kind of warn me of what happens when things get bigger and better, like I would, maybe I'd still be doing this shit. I don't know, but feeling like completely on my own, I didn't know what the fuck, how to handle this. Now people want to take control over it. I had doing it on my channel. Now I'm being told, all right, we're putting your videos, Pro Talk, behind a paywall, and that defeats everything I've ever stood for. I never wanted to charge people for anything because I know what it's like to go to an arcade with one quarter and try to make it last as long as possible. So if you see it, like the Pro Talk videos are hidden behind paywalls now, so you can't even really watch most of them unless another channel uploaded it, and that shit infuriated me. So I'm like, all right, so we're slowly starting to separate away from the people, and I can't stand for that. It was just so much. So I think we had sponsors wanting to come in, wanting to offer some big money to be part of it, which is all good. Everything was dope, but once Street Fighter V came around and was kind of like forced upon people, when Street Fighter 4 did all of the organic growth, it kind of hurt. And I myself, I would have made a lot of money. I probably would be, doing God knows what with whatever co-celebrities and stuff to integrate to keep the machine running. But in my heart, if I don't like the game, people are going to see that through my eyes, and I didn't want to lie to people, So I'd rather be broke and truthful than rich and just a liar. So I said, I got to stop doing this. I can't do it anymore. And they did ask me, even when I left Twitch, Twitch was like all supportive. They're like, do you want to just come back like every week just to do the Pro Talk and keep that going? I was like, I can't, like my mentality is shot right now. I can't do that. So I mean, that's really why it stopped.
Yeah, it's it can be scary once you've built something like that, and now it's kind of like now you have like voices that are telling you, it's got to be like this, you got to do this, and the monetization has to be like this, and you kind of and this is something that kind of started in your bedroom basically, right? Yeah. So I think that's I can see how that was kind of with the release of Street Fighter V. I think there were a lot of people who, especially the game when it came out, it was in a bad state as well. But then there was also a lot of design choices. I made a video about this, and it's still like the most viewed video, I think, on the Corey Gaming channel. I wish it wasn't. I wish it was like more about like
that shows that's the evidence, right?
Yeah, but it's like So but I mean, it was definitely a concerning thing because like if you played the game, suddenly you're in Street Fighter 4, you have you have all these techniques, and it's the buffer, the input buffer.
Yeah, just
that was kind of like a big one, right?
Execution-related stuff.
Yeah, the input buffer was. I think people are still kind of concerned about it today. I think even James Chen made some comments about input buffer, and I'm starting to wonder if this is kind of an old man yells at cloud kind of like complaint about fighting games these days. But I mean, I do think like there's like when you make it more and more lenient, it's kind of like you take a dartboard and then you make the bullseye and the centerpiece all into one color, right? There's this kind of aspect where, and I don't think every fighting game needs to be like that, have like really strict inputs.
Not all games.
Not all games need to have that. Like Magic series in like Marvel games, that's not designed to be like strict. You're supposed to do like ABC shit, right? So, but there's like a lot of there's a lot of simplification. And it was kind of it was kind of a shock because the game was very different and it was incomplete at the time, and they were like pushing it on like on many different fronts.
Very forceful.
And like I mean I get it. There needs to be like a marketing push to you got your new game and you got to do things or whatever. But the thing is they brought the FGC into the fold, right? So it wasn't just like marketing in terms of like we'll just have this cool commercial and we'll like do this make apparel or whatever. It was like let's get fighting game people and bring them in, and we'll make kind of like a show with it, and so I think that's kind of is a funny moment. It was you remember the Lupe Fiasco the Daigo match or whatever, the exhibition, like it was interesting. You're kind of. I remember watching that, being like, okay, this is like a big deal in terms of like, collab, marketing, whatever. And everyone knew it was kind of a marketing stunt. And but then like Lupe Fiasco would tweet things like, oh, I'm training up to beat Daigo by beating the CPU with only light attacks. And I'm like, okay. I mean, there are people who have been trying to beat Daigo their whole life, like people like Tokido who have cried on camera for not being able to beat Daigo after so many attempts. And then this dude's going to just like
almost felt like an insult.
Practice, against Daigo by beating the CPU with light attacks, right? And I remember that was, and I don't know exactly what happened during that whole event. There's it's history now. You can look at, you can watch
what happened.
Yeah, but
we know.
But later it was funny because there was also a clip of, I think Lupe was playing Alex Valle, and Alex Valle was just crushing him, and Alex Valle was just like, I ain't Daigo, man. I ain't Daigo. I ain't Daigo. I remember that clip.
Welcome to the real world.
Yeah, it was like the Justin Wong moment, like, welcome to the real world. It's just like, whoa. Yeah. It's like, I can't, and so this is, this was an interesting time in the fighting game community, and I'm kind of like, I don't know, I was feeling like I was trying to figure things out, like what does it mean to be a community, and how does this, and so I got a book called The Art of Community, and I do this whenever I'm like can't. Like I'm confounded by something. I just buy a book on it, and like a book is basically you pay $10 and you get someone's like decades of like knowledge on that one thing. So I just read a book about community, and then like I started piecing things together, and I think this was during the time when I think they were doing I think it was like there was like E-League and all these like new big events that were happening, and like all this stuff, and then you saw like the new people coming into the fold, and it was kind of messy, right, during that time, and so I made a video about like community, and it kind of helped me kind of piece things together about communities and how like on some level you do have to bend and adjust certain things in the community, even things that have been held very deeply within the community. The FGC has done this and even forgotten about it. The idea of, remember, like arcade cabs versus console, like I'm sure the canons know how much of a big thing that was when that happened. But now you can't imagine a fighting game tournament where it's only arcade cabs. That would be the most ridiculous thing. But there was like that transition period. Arcade sticks as well. There was like, can you actually have like a portable, your own arcade stick? Is it even going to be similar? Is that really going to be a legit tournament? And then now arcade stick culture is a huge part of the FGC. So there are like growing pains, and every community has to morph and transform on some level gradually, or else it'll become obsolete. Because I mean, imagine like any of the religions, if they never did this, then there would be like some serious issues in modern times, right? So there's always like any community, whether it's religious or video games or even like politics, right? But this is so I guess during this time you kind of like, I think maybe you needed to just kind of like check out, and you kind of did in a big way. I remember it was on Twitter. You just kind of like I suspended your Twitter. Like I don't know what you call it. Like you kind of deactivated it, and you kind of went through this period of you just weren't in the visible public eye, and I think a lot of people respected that. It's like, okay, if he doesn't want to, that's cool. I'm sure I'm sure there were some people who were bothering you about it, but overall, I remember it was kind of like, let him have his time. And I guess during that time, I guess this is kind of this was a quiet period. So forgive me if I'm by bringing this up now. I'm unpacking this as well, but is there, during that time, was it like a good, do you feel that during that time, despite everything that had happened, do you feel that it was like almost like a therapeutic time or a reflection time, or just kind of like...
It was the worst time of my life.
Okay.
It was horrible. Oh my God. A lot of it was like self-punishment. Like I was just trying to take everything away from myself that I had. Anything I ever built, anything I ever accomplished, I just got rid of it. Everything. I got rid of every trophy that I had except the gold stick. I got rid of every venue thing that I had. My walls were completely blank. Like it was all just self-punishment. It wasn't healthy. It wasn't smart by any means. If anything, it's therapeutic now, to know what not to do. Self-destruction, the implosion. It's so stupid. It's so childish. But I just felt like, damn, I have nobody, I felt this way. I have nobody I can talk to who's going to relate and understand what I'm going through, So
Yeah.
I held everything internally. I held all that shit in. So I was, during this time, I said, I need something to get my mind off of all of this negative energy that I have, because, I'm seeing it, and I'm seeing the things, a lot of the opportunities that I said no to, and I'm seeing what people said yes to, and that's hurting me, as well. I'm like, fuck, you guys are just, like you said, I see this E-League happening. I was not on it. I was asked to help with it in the very beginning. And I said I was willing to. Oh man. And then once it was like a week away from actually happening, somebody said, "Hey, yeah, so we're gonna have you play." I was like, "Wait, you want me to play? What was the prize? I forgot what the prize was. Let's just say it was $1 million. You want me to play Street Fighter 5 for $1 million?" So let me think about this here. So you want me there because you want me to bring whatever I've built to watch this bullshit, right? And in my head, I'm thinking, but I know a player. Let's just take LPN for example. I know a player like LPN who is ridiculous, like who really works at this shit, and I'm essentially going to take a spot that somebody else who's hardworking should have. No, I'm not going to do this. Well, then what do you want to do? You want to be a commentator? You want the camera time, don't you? You want camera time, right? And I was like, nope, nope, I'm good, because there's somebody else who wants to commentate this game. So yeah, during that time, I'm just looking at a lot of things that I said no to. I didn't, I just didn't want to look at anything. So I just deactivated myself from as much as possible. And I essentially didn't leave my bedroom for a couple of years, very unhealthy. So I needed to remember, why did I do any of this? Why did I bring a camera to an arcade and film Dark Prince versus Clockwork? Why did I do any of this shit? I need something. So I downloaded and installed a game called Guilty Gear Xrd, and that essentially saved my life.
Nice.
Wow. Yeah. So this is very interesting, because I actually